Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so this is the non-calculator section of the SAT practice exam. I'm going to go ahead and go through this whole exam and show you how to work out these couple of questions. Now, some of these are going to be longer than others, so you kind of have to, once you're taking this test, judge it yourself and pick which ones you should skip and then come back to if you have time. Because remember, all these questions are basically worth the same amount of points. So you don't want to waste a lot of time on one question when you could have skipped it and answered maybe 2 or 3 in that same amount of time. Let's go ahead and get started. So this one's asking, what value of z satisfies the equation above? In other words, just solve for z. The first one's always going to be a very, very easy question, so you should always definitely attempt the first one. You go ahead and rewrite this, and then, of course, combine your z's. So minus 2z to both sides. You get 1 is equal to negative z. And then, of course, to get a positive c, you go ahead and divide by negative 1. And your answer would be B. All right. This one, a television has a price of $300. With a price of $300 to be purchased with an initial payment of $60 and weekly payments of $30. Which of the following equations can be used to find the number of weekly payments that will be required to complete the purchase, assuming there are no taxes or fees? Okay, so look, they all start off with a total. So look at your answer choices and you know that they all start off with the total. You have an initial payment of 60 and then weekly payments of 30. So plus 30 times weekly. So you look for something that looks very similar to this. Not that, not that, not that. It's this one right here. C would be your answer. All right, let's look at this one. Shipping charges. The table above shows shipping charges for an online retailer that sells sporting goods. There is a linear relationship between the shipping charge and the weight of the merchandise. Which function can be used to determine the total shipping charge, f of x in dollars for an order with a merchandise weight of x pounds? All right, so for this one, you got to do a couple things. Number one, you have to find out how much they're charging you per pound. And number two, you have to find out what the initial shipping charge is. So what I would do is I would just go ahead and take these two first ones, and I'd simply go ahead and subtract them. That way, you're going to know the difference between 5 pounds and 10 pounds, which is 5 pounds, and see how much they're going to charge you for that. So I go ahead and take 21.89, and I subtract 16.94. And a good thing to point out right now is that you should probably skip something like this that have multiple steps until the very end. You don't want to waste your time with a question like this when there are others that you could be answering way quicker. So let's go ahead and keep going. The 9 minus 4 is 5. You got to borrow, so that's 18. 18 minus 9, that's 9. And then here we're going to 20 minus 16, we got 4, so 495. This is the charge that they increased from 5 pounds to 10 pounds. So what we're going to do is we're going to take 495 and we're going to divide this by 5. That way we get a good idea of what they charge per pound. So we go ahead and divide this, okay. Again, we can't use a calculator in this section, so we have to do everything by hand. We have to divide the long way. So 5 times 9 is going to give us 45. We go ahead and subtract these two. 49 minus 45 gives us 4. Bring down the 5. And 9 again, right? We'll move our decimal places twice over because we have 2 decimals here. So we see that they're charging us 99 cents per pound. Okay, let's see if we can't eliminate any answer choices. Well, look, honestly, at this point, you know it's not going to be this. You know it's not going to be this because, again, for an order with merchandise weight of X pounds. So it's always going to be, if this is per pound, then this times X. Right, so you got two choices. It's going to be 0.99 times X or 0.99 times X plus 11.99. If you really want to make sure what that shipping charge is, you go ahead and take 5 pounds. You take 16.94, which is what they charge for 9 pounds, and you subtract 4.95, which is what they would charge you for those 5 pounds. You go ahead and get 9 Over here, you're going to get 8. So you borrow from here, and you're going to end up getting 9, and 15 minus 4 is 11. So 11.99 is your initial, and then 99 cents per pound. So your answer would be B. Again, that took way too long for a test that's timed. You'd want to skip that one and then come back to it at the end. It wasn't difficult, but you do want to skip it at first. All right, the line in the XY plane above represents the relationship between height in feet and the base diameter x in feet for a cylindrical Doric column in ancient Greek architecture. How much greater is the height of a Doric column that has a base diameter of 5? Okay, so we already know that. Base diameter 5. 5 feet. Then the height of a Doric column that has a base diameter of 2 feet. So we're comparing these two. So here we have 35 is the height, and 14 is this height. So simply 35 minus 14. That's going to be 1. That's going to be 2. So 21 feet is the answer that you were looking for. Number 5, let's look at it. If x is greater than 0, which of the following is equivalent to the given expression? Okay, so for this one, we actually have to go ahead and solve. Well, it's actually pretty simple. Square root gets distributed, right? So 3, which is the square root of 9 is 3, and the square root of x squared is just x. So your answer would be 3x. You don't need to overcomplicate this one. Just move on. All right, so for this one, number 6, there's a couple of things that you have to take note of. The first thing that you should notice is that you can never divide by 0. So anything that would make the denominator 0 in this equation is going to be automatically out. For example, 1 minus 1 would give you a denominator of 0. So if I plugged in 1 for x, and that would be out. So obviously it can't be 1. For the rest of these, you can actually just go ahead and plug them in. So I would just take negative 3 squared minus 1 over negative 3 minus 1. This is going to give me 9 minus 1, which is equal to 8. You have negative 3 minus 1 is equal to negative 4. So 8 divided by negative 4, that would be equal to 2. So you have two possible answers. You have negative 3 and negative 3 and negative 1. So let's plug in negative 1, see if it works. Negative 1 squared minus 1. So negative 1 squared is 1. Minus 1 is equal to 0. And so this obviously can't be it, because then you have negative 1 minus 1. That would be equal to 2. So 0 over 2. That's just going to give you 0. So 0 is not equal to negative 2. So then your answer is just going to be negative 3. You don't even have to try 0, because, well, it says all values of x that satisfy the equation above. The graph of y is equal to f of x is shown in the xy plane. What is the value of f of 0? F of 0 just means you plug in 0 for your x. So that means, where does it cross this line right here, which is your y-axis? You can see very simply that that's 4. Again, don't waste your time on these questions. Once you're sure, move on. In the figure above, point B lies on AD. All right, so we know that this is a line, so this whole thing has to be 180 degrees. What is the value of 3 times x? Okay, well, we know that this is 90 degrees. So obviously this has to be 90 degrees. So we got 1x, 2x, so combine these together, that's 3x, 4x, 5x. So this whole thing is 90 is equal to 5x. So we take 90 and we divide it by 5. Sorry. If we take 90 and we divide it by 5, that's just simply going to give us 18, right? Again, we have to do everything by hand, no calculator. So it's going to give us 18. And so x by itself is equal to 18, but don't fall for that trick right there. They're going to put that 18 there. They're asking for the value of 3x. So we take 18 and then we multiply it by 3. So 3 times 8 is 24. 3 times 1 is 3, plus that 2 is 54. Your answer would actually be C in this case. All right, let's take a look at number 9. It asks, which of the following is an equation of line L in the xy plane above? Okay, so line L. We're looking at this line right here, okay? And what we know about this line is that it is actually going to be a linear equation. So it's just a regular line with the equation y is equal to mx plus b, right? Notice I'm not even looking at my answers. I'm just focusing on trying to solve this linear equation, right? The plus b is the y-intercept, so we can go ahead and say y is equal to mx minus 4. That's my y-intercept. And then our slope, if you look at it, it's just going to be run 1, it's rise over run, right? So we run 1, and then we rise a negative 1. We go down, actually. So you could say that this is going to be y is equal to negative x minus 4. Now we go ahead and pay attention to our answer choices. So our answer choices are not in y is equal to mx plus b format. They have the y and the x on the same side. So this just means that we have to move this over. We add x to both sides. Y plus x is equal to negative 4. Nope, that's minus, that's minus. That's a positive 4. Your answer choice would be C. Let's look at number 10. Okay, the graph of y, the graph of y is equal to 2x squared plus 10x plus 12 is shown. If the graph crosses the y-axis at the point 0, k, what is the value of k? Okay, so k is talking about y-intercept. So when you're talking about the y-intercept, you basically are saying, hey, take your x and make it 0. So we take our equation that they gave us, and all we do is we plug in 0. So, sorry, 0 there, plus 12. Okay, so if we look at this very quickly, 0 squared is 0. 0 times 0 is 0. Times 2 is 0, so 0, plus 10 times 0 is 0, plus 12. That's my answer. Easy peasy. All right. 12. In the figure above, triangle ABC is similar to triangle DEF. What is the value of cosine of E? Okay, so we're dealing with sine, cosine, tangent. So you have to remember SOHCAHTOA. SOHCAHTOA. All right. So we're working with cosine. So we're looking at cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. And since these are similar, that means they're going to have the same ratios. They're not going to be the exact same size. So you can't say that this is 12 or 13 or this is 5 or anything like that. But they will be the same ratios. And since SOHCAHTOA works mainly with ratios and fractions, basically you can use the same one for either triangle. So if you're looking for the value of cosine of E, okay, E is this, which corresponds with B, and cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, so adjacent over hypotenuse, we're just going to say that this is going to be 12 over 13. That's all you have to do. Oh, I see that I skipped number 11, but that's okay. Okay, a circle in the xy plane has center 5, 7 and radius 2. Which of the following is an equation of the circle? Okay, so this is actually one that I would skip entirely unless you actually know the equation of a circle. And the equation of a circle is not very familiar to everybody. It's actually going to be this: x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. This is something that you basically learn at the end of pre-cal. So if you haven't taken pre-cal, or if you take it any time before the end of pre-cal, you're not going to know this, and that's okay. If you notice, they do give you some equations at the very beginning of the test, like these, but the equation of a circle is actually not in here. So it's kind of one of those like you either know it or you don't. Let's see, where was I? Okay, so just so you guys know, this is the equation of a circle. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. R is referring to the radius, and h comma k is referring to the center. So we have h and k there, and radius 2. So if we plug everything in, we get x minus 5 squared plus y minus 7 squared is equal to 2 squared, which is 4. So we look and see where we have that answer choice. X minus 5 squared plus y minus 7 is equal to 4. The answer would be A. And we already did number 12, so we move on to number 13. In the xy plane, the graph of the function x squared plus 5x plus 4 has two x-intercepts. So we're looking for x-intercepts, we're looking for zeros. What is the distance between the x-intercepts? So on these, we're actually looking for the two x-intercepts. So we've got to solve for 0. The easiest way to do that is to factor this out. So you get x squared plus 5x plus 4. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and look for a number that multiplies to 4 but adds up to a positive 5. So if I think of what those two numbers could be, that's probably going to be a 4 and a positive 1. So we go ahead and factor this out into x plus 4, x plus 1. And then this gives me my zeros as x is equal to negative 4 and x is equal to negative 1. And the distance between these 2 points, ladies and gentlemen, would end up being C. There's a distance of 3 between those two. Let's look at 14. All right, what are the values of x that satisfy the given equation? So we're given the options either 1, 9, or both or neither. So what we do is we simply plug in these values. Let's see what that gives us. We go ahead and take the square root of 4 times 1 is equal to, 1 minus 3. 4 times 1 is 4, square root of 4 is 2, is equal to 1 minus 3. That gives me a negative 2. So that is not equal to each other. So we know that for sure it can't be 1. It's not going to be 1 and 2. Right? It could be either 2 only or neither of these. Let's try 9. We plug in 9 into the square root of 4 times 9 is equal to 9 minus 3. Well, 4 times 9 is 36. Square root of 36 is equal to 9 minus 3, 6. Is this true? Yes, square root of 36 is equal to 6. So the answer would be B only. It's not going to be neither. For number 14, in the system of equations above, A is a constant. For which of the following values of A does the system have no solution? Okay, so this is actually a pretty tough one. And it's not tough because you don't know what to do, but it's tough because you have to remember something important, and then you have to do a lot of work to get there. So your option, if you don't remember what to do, is to take this, plug in every single answer choice you have for A, and see if each one of these gives you a solution. That's going to take a long time, and I wouldn't recommend it unless you have done every other question already. So what you can do instead is, if you remember, what does it mean when a system has no solution? So when a system has no solution, what it's talking about is this. It's talking about two lines that just happen to be parallel. Two parallel lines will have no solution. And that's because they never meet. A solution is basically a point where they meet. So what I would end up doing is I end up saying, okay, well, I'm going to turn these guys into y is equal to mx plus b format. That way, I can see what the slope is going to be and make sure that they have the same slope. So if I go ahead and turn this into y is equal to mx plus b format, this top one's pretty easy. Y is equal to, I'm just going to add plus 3x to both sides. So 3x plus 6. Y is equal to mx plus b. So this is my y-intercept. This is my slope. So I'm looking for something that's going to have a slope of 3. If we go ahead and change this to y-intercept format, we get something a little bit different. We get 2y is equal to negative ax plus 4. So I went ahead and subtracted negative ax from both sides. And to go ahead and try to make this a little bit simpler for myself, I went ahead and divided the whole thing by 2. So we get y is equal to negative a over 2 x plus 2 divided by 2 is just, 4 divided by 2 is just 2. So we're looking for when is negative a over 2 going to equal 3? Because again, we want them to have the same slope. So what number can I plug into here that will make this equal? Well, we could plug in negative 6, negative 6 divided by 2. Negative and a negative make a positive, so that's 6 divided by 2, which is equal to 3. So in fact, A is going to be your answer. Let's move on to these questions. Now these questions are a bit tougher because again you have to bubble in. There is the possibility of fractions and there is the possibility of decimals, so you have to be careful and make sure that you plug them in correctly. There should be, okay, 5 of these questions, not too bad. Let's see what the first one says. A manufacturer shipped units of a certain product to 2 locations. The location above shows the total shipping cost T in dollars. Okay, that's the total. For shipping C number of units to the closer location and shipping F units to the further location. Okay, if the total shipping cost was $47,000 and 3,000 units were shipped to the further location, how many units were shipped to the closer one? Okay, so this is telling us that T is 47,000. And this is equal to 5 times C. We don't know what C is. We're looking for that. Plus 12 times, 12 times 3,000 units. So if we multiply this out, this gives us 36,000. Plus 5C is equal to 47. Let's go ahead and subtract 36,000 from both sides. So this originally is 47,000. So minus 36,000. This is going to go ahead and give us 1 and 1, 11,000 is equal to 5C. And then if we go ahead and want to divide by 5, we take 11,000 divided by 5. Here this goes in twice. Get 10, so we get 1,000. It's going to go in 2 times again, right, because it's 10. 0, okay, so there. So we end up having the answer 2,200. Right, I guess it'd be a lot easier if you just got rid of all the zeros, but yeah, I mean, this is just simply exactly what it is, right? 5 times 200 will give you 1,000, and so this would be your final answer. Let's see, number 17. If A and B are the solutions to the equation above, what is the value of A minus B? Okay, so for this one, when you're working with absolute values and when you're working with equations of absolute values, you have to separate this out. You have to separate this out into a positive equation, and you also have to separate this out into a negative equation. Because whether that's a 5 in there or a negative 5, the absolute value bars are basically going to turn this into a positive 5 anyway. So you have to solve for both. And this is either going to be A or B. It's not going to matter which one's which. But you go ahead and solve. Minus 1, minus 1. 2x is equal to 4. Divide by 2, divide by 2. x is equal to 2. Minus 1, 2x is equal to, that's a negative 6, divided by 2, x is equal to 3. And so when you have a minus b, 2 minus, sorry, this would be a negative 3. Negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. 2 minus a negative 3, this is actually going to give you a positive 5. And if you did it the other way, again, to show you that it doesn't matter if you switch them or not, negative 3 minus 2 is actually going to give you a negative 5. But since they're asking about the absolute value of this, the absolute value of that is also negative 5. So your answer is just going to be 5. Let's look at number 18. Juan purchased an antique that had a value of $200 at the time of the purchase. Each year, the value of the antique is estimated to increase 10% over its value the previous year. The estimated value of the antique in dollars 2 years after purchase can be represented by the expression 200 times A, where A is a constant. What is the value of A? Okay, so when you increase value per year, you're basically multiplying it by, you would increase it by 110%. But since we're doing it in decimal, you're basically going to say, okay, so 200 times 110%, which is 1.1, times, that's for the first year, 1.1. Again, 110% for the second year. So this is what you would do. Now they're asking you to combine these two, 1.1 times 1.1, so that you can just have a single A. So 1 times 1 is 1, 1 times 1 is 1, add the 0, 1 times 1 is 1, 1 times 1 is 1. And you add these together, you get 121, and you have two decimals, so 1, 2, there you go. A is equal to 1.21. Based on the system of equations above, what is the value of 5x plus 5y? All right, so we're looking for each of these individually, x and y. What we need to do in this case is we actually need to go ahead and use either substitution or elimination. In this case, I'm going to go for elimination. I'm going to try to eliminate the, let's try to eliminate the y's. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply this by 2 and multiply this whole thing by, let's say actually, I changed my mind. I'm going to try to eliminate the x's. So I'm going to multiply this whole thing by 3, this whole thing by negative 2. And the reason I did that is just so that I can end up with a bigger number there. Not really that big a deal. Or at least I think it will. It doesn't matter. Either way should work. So we get 6x plus 9y is equal to, this is going to be 3,600. And then that negative 2, this is going to be negative 6x minus 4y is equal to negative, see, there we go, 2,600. So that's exactly what I wanted. The x's are going to cancel out. This is going to be 9y minus 4y is 5y is equal to, what's actually going to be equal to 1,000. And look at that. So we already know that that's 1,000. So we can keep that in our back pocket for a little bit later. If we want to know what what this is, we divide by 5. Divide by 5. Y is and has ended up being 200. And then we can plug this in. So 3x plus 2 times 200 is equal to 1,300. So this is 3x is equal to, sorry, plus 400 is equal to 1,300. We subtract 400 from both sides, subtract 400. 3x is equal to 900. And so we can say x is equal to 300 once we divide by 3 on both sides. So if this is 5 times x, 5 times 300, that's 1,500. And when you add these two together, that gives you 2,500. So that should be our answer. I know that's a lot of work, and you have very little room, but you know, these are probably going to be the last questions you work on, and so you want to get as many points as you can. Finally, 20. If u plus t is equal to 5 and u minus t is equal to 2, what is the value of u minus t times u squared minus t squared? Oof, okay. So for this one, you might need a little bit of room. The first thing that you need to do is you need to go ahead and solve for u and for t. Well, actually, u minus t is equal to 2, so we already know that that's going to be 2 right there, so we don't need to stress too much about that. For the other one, if you're not sure what to do, this is just a system of equations. U plus t is equal to 5, and then u minus t is equal to 2. So if we actually add these together, they actually eliminate themselves. So you get 2u is equal to 5 plus 2 is 7. So we divide by 2, and this is going to give us u is equal to 7 over 2. Now to find out what t is, we can use this one. 7 over 2 plus t is going to be equal to 5. And 5, I can change it to 10 over 2. Right? That's the same thing as saying 5. And from here, it becomes pretty simple. Oh, well, if this is 7 over 2 plus something, it's going to give us 10 over 2. Then t has to be equal to 3 over 2. Okay, so our next step is going to be to plug everything in here. So we're going to get, we already know that's 2, so we get 7 over 2 minus, squared, this whole thing squared, minus 3 over 2, the whole thing squared. Right, we're going to need a little bit more room, and we can fit it in here. Now that we have this set up, we're going to go ahead and square both the numerator and the denominator, so we get 49 over 4 minus 9 over 4 is equal to 40 over 4. 40 over 4 is equal to 10, but don't be so quick to put down that answer because, remember, we also have to multiply it by this, 2, which we got from there. So 10 times 2 is equal to 20. And that is how you go ahead and solve each of these problems.